Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Pinball Arcade. Last time we played Attack from Mars. Today we're playing something I think called Big Shot. Is that... no, it says Big Hurt. Frank Thomas Big Hurt from Gottlieb, 1995. I thought it was a uh, baseball game, but I don't get the idea of Big Hurt or who Frank Thomas is. So let's read the descriptions. Attack on Mars is a fine table. It's just kind of weird that it locks you out of some features. You can only do video mode once. You can only do all the attack modes once. And then at that point, you can only progress the scoring by accomplishing 6 other goals. Well, 4 other goals, which is just weird. There's been a long history of baseball pinball tables, but most of them are like really, really old pinball tables that aren't really what you would think of when you think of pinball. That they are tables that would have a few sinkholes and maybe one flipper to represent a bat, and that's about it. Made out of wood from the like 60s or earlier. Frank Thomas's Big Hurt from 1995 is a pure powerhouse pinball designed by Bill Parker and John Norris. Neither one of those named Frank Thomas. So Frank Thomas must have been a famous baseball player. I don't recognize the name. Um, this table is based off the career of the baseball legend, the Big Hurt, Frank Thomas. I guess the Big Hurt is his nickname. Yeah, I've never heard of this. And see, it would make a lot more sense in 1995 to make a table based off of somebody like Babe Ruth, somebody who is famous and probably you wouldn't have to pay anything to license their name from. So unless they actually got this baseball player to voice himself in the game and his voice sounded relatively decent and that really improved the game somehow, I feel like this is an odd theme for sure. In general, I would much prefer to just have a baseball themed table that's generic, like the soccer game, because like in 2021, Frank Thomas, the Big Hurt means nothing. Boasting cool features such as a moving baseball glove, a 3-lane raising ramp, and a 3-shot upper deck, this game puts players in the role of a professional baseball player on the road to the World Series. Only 1,985 units of this table were produced, so it couldn't have been that big of a table, anyways. And see, this was a Gottlieb table, I believe, and yeah, I just don't think Gottlieb had any funding by 1995 at all. So down here you've got first, second base, and home baseball field. That makes sense. There's a right gap and a left gap and a glove, and then a whole line of lights here. There are just painted lights where there's clearly room to have had more goals or more end of game bonus lights to light up. Then we got this baseball guy who I don't recognize, but I mean, he is definitely dominating the scene. Larger than life, larger than the city. And then you've got this lightning where the ball is getting shot up a 3-lane shot. Where's that 3-lane shot really ends, though? It jumps the ball, it seems, if you hit it hard enough, to a left ramp that then feeds the ball back to the end lane past the switch. I don't know why so many tables are doing that these days. Or it jumps the ball into the glove, which I assume the glove is going to move, and otherwise you have the Big Hurt trademark. This feels like this is a pinball table that's an ego trip for this baseball player, much like Terminator 2. You have a whole picture on the side there of an audience on this lane. And then this shoots up this way and then loops back to this, which I have no idea what the ball goes after that. It feels like it would just kind of roll down this way and get dropped here. That seems weird. And then if you take the right gap, this loops back this way to an in lane on this side. So there is a crisscross, clearly, of left gap, then right gap, left gap, then right gap. But not a lot to shoot on this table because they've merged what would have been 3 lanes worth and probably closer to 4 lanes because they're wider on the back end here. Whereas most ramps get a little bit tighter past the mouth. This one gets wider. It looks like there might be something under here that you shoot. And here, I assume this is an umpire saying you're safe. But yeah, and maybe that pops the ball back up. Maybe that's just a really wide scoop that pops the ball back up to then feed the ball up this ramp where there might be a standing target back in this corner. Otherwise, you've got a cross shot, and the cross shot is feeding up this direction for 2 really squashed together pop-up bumpers, and very big pop-up bumpers. Like, it feels like you probably could have squeezed in a third if you went smaller in your style. Back here you have standing targets. Over here you've got a scoop. Over here you've got maybe a standing target or just some slingshots. It definitely doesn't feel like there's a lot of shots going on here. They could potentially have video modes to flesh out a game like this. I guess this is the guy that, although look at his arm not even being animated in the darkness, that seems like low budget, and the idea of his bat being electric, maybe that's what they mean by big hurt, is that he hits the ball so hard he hurts it, or if you get hit by a ball that he hits, it hurts you, which that's probably true for any professional baseball batter. This table, just on an immediate first look, looks like it needs more things going on, like a backboard, mini game, or something. Are we gonna see peanuts mentioned? Are we gonna see Cracker Jacks? Are the 7th inning stretch? That's a baseball thing, I believe. Even when watching real baseball, they do all kinds of video things to keep people interested on the jumbotrons. So I would try to translate a lot of that to a table like this. Let's see what the flyer has to offer. Interesting, there's a legal notice on this table. Let's see. See, the picture on this case animates the arm correctly. I have to wonder how much of this is DirectX 12. Now, we're going to have to address the elephant in the room at some point. You have an African-American looking baseball player, although he may not have actually been American. He may have been just of African ancestry, foreigner playing for an American baseball team. But every other table we've seen has been fairly white guy centric, and we've seen a few tables that have women, but often the women are just objects of desire. They're just blondes with big boobs and perky breasts, perky nipples. So this is a level of diversity that we really haven't seen, and we've also kind of compounded that thought, certainly, with a lot of pinball tables that were very centered around country music, which tends to notoriously be very white male centric also. So it could be that this table literally didn't sell, or they just didn't have the contacts for the places that you would sell this. There definitely is a case that there are bars out there where white people are welcome, and there are bars out there where white people aren't welcome, and vice versa for every other race. And it may have been a case in 1995 that trying to have a pinball table in a bar that was a hip-hop bar, or a more, for lack of a more tactful way to say, urban bar. It could be pinball and arcade developers just didn't have those contacts, didn't have those business relationships, and so they couldn't break into that. Could also be that those kinds of bars for that kind of audience doesn't really want to play pinball. They probably did want to dance a little bit more. Although arguably dancing and pinball kind of go hand in hand. If you can play pinball, you'll eventually learn how to dance. Could be an argument made, because you're moving your feet and your hips a little bit while playing pinball. Anyways, our standard goals are score a skill shot, trade cards. Interesting, baseball cards going to play a role. Start the 7th inning stretch, that is going to be mentioned. Play the Grand Slam Derby and score a Grand Slam. Okay, let's hop into the game. Well, immediately, the angle and the scale on this table feels totally wrong. Like, that ball looks about 2 times as big as it should be. And then the table looks really small. Is that some gimmick, or is that just a case of the Pinball Arcade doing an absolute awful job of visually depicting everything? Seriously, this table so far feels awful. So you get the ball up here, and what are you trying to hit? Just those knockdown targets? They're not even blinking. So is that the skill shot or not? There. So I shot this in there. That didn't feel like that scored a run for me. Apparently I've done 3 innings. If you can't make the jump, it's going to put the ball in a slightly different place. This feels like you kind of need the camera down to this angle, at least to start with. The red and blue flat strobe lights, I mean, red, white, and blue with the white flippers maybe makes a little bit of sense, but yeah, otherwise it doesn't make sense, because it just feels like the police are setting off a siren on this pinball table for no reason. So, multi-ball, you get a choice. Yeah, these balls are, there's something wrong with the way these balls are being depicted. These are huge. I like the option to choose what you're doing, but I kind of hate every angle. There we go. It seems like a third of your shots are going to be up the center lane, and it seems like the jump, particularly in the center lane, is even higher than the left and right jump. So you're just not going to pull that off. This is a table that absolutely needs a... It needs a center peg, and probably a ball saver, and probably something else. Golden glove. I don't know if I lock something there. Now we're in like a 2-ball multi-ball. I'd say the music does not sound particularly interesting. It's a little dull, a little muted.
Can you believe it, sports fans? He's in there safely with a single.
So sometimes you aim for the glove, sometimes you don't. Now, in fairness, compared to the soccer game, this is kind of more what I would have liked. I don't like the ramps, but the idea of a much more in the center, much more focused, straight shot up the center for scoring a goal, a try or whatever it's called in soccer, a point. I think it's just called a point. I think try is cricket. Seems like you're only collecting trading cards of this one guy, and the idea of a baseball game centering around one character is just ridiculous. Like, even in video games, when you have like Tony Hawk or somebody on the cover, the whole game isn't focused around Tony Hawk. I was thinking of Tiger Woods, not Tony Hawk the skater. There. This is a great example of a game that I wouldn't probably put why does it tell me they're inoperative switches? Interesting. Yeah, this is not a game that I would put a second quarter in, really. It gives you way too easy of an opportunity to fail. I shouldn't have started another game. Actually, yeah, let's just exit this, and then let's back out, and then let's just reload the whole simulation, just in case there's something different here. And I already have a Hall of Fame score of 20 for playing one game. No, that still feels like that ball is bigger. Although simulating the weight, it's kind of hard to tell. This cross shot almost certainly should open up in such a way that you can try. Oh, there's a home run derby done. You should be able to get the ball up to the home run center shot that way, and that means there needs to be some way to curve the ball, and I don't know how you really address that. So probably what I would have done is not had the top left flipper in the first place. I would have gained you some room to put something else. This is a particularly dark table, considering how green the field of a baseball field is. Wouldn't it make a lot more sense for it to be green grass as the background, always? Yeah, that whole table art, I think I would prefer to... I would prefer to have it simulate the entirety of the stadium from front to back of the table.
Please make it short.
pinball balls do look the right size sometimes. There's a Grand Slam. But sometimes it's like the wrong scale. So I think what we've got here is an instance of a version of the engine, since pretty much every emulation is its own custom version of the code, where the visual scale is wrong. Yeah, we trade the cards. This is a weird table because while it might help you practice center lane shots, pretty much every table helps you practice center lane shots, and this one won't really help you practice that much because you're having to hit these center lane shots with particularly a large amount of force, more than an average table, because of the ramps. He scored 162 million. That did not feel like that deserves 162 million. But see, now the ball is back to being bigger than it looks. Or bigger than it should be. There's a lifted ramp where you launch the ball when in multi-ball to stop it from ending up in the same place that it would end up normally. Which that seems like that's a lot of gimmick right at the plunger. You would almost want a pitching top field section, and I imagine this person that the table is based off, it didn't pitch much. Otherwise you would kind of want like a pitcher's square to indicate whether you're throwing strikes or balls. The idea of balls is seemingly not even playing a role in this. And the glove does seem to represent the ball getting catched, but it doesn't seem to represent a good thing ever. Except for maybe in the Golden Glove moment. Keep draining the balls.
This guy's on fire! Frank Thomas has done it again!
Let's see, there's another great example. The glove catches the ball, and instead of potentially holding it with a magnet or something that would make more sense and keep the ball from draining out, it is just bouncing it right back down the center lane.
Get the extra ball!
Which, if you're going to make a table designed like this, you basically can't have a standard pinball table. You can't have a center lane. And this may be a table where you could potentially end the game enough with just outlane drains anyways. I think there's probably more tables like that than you would realize. I did just watch a video of a pinball museum in California that had like 650 pinball tables. Not all of those are unique. There was a few that had two copies of the same table. But 650 is quite a large number from what I imagine is about maybe 125 at most in Pinball Arcade that were licensed. Now, in all fairness, though, they got a pretty good curation in Pinball Arcade, but then the tables are not available for purchase now, so that all goes out the window. The only table that I really am missing is Super Mario Brothers. There's some other tables that certainly would have been interesting. I didn't see an Aerosmith, but I did see an AC/DC table. So maybe there never was an Aerosmith pinball table. It's interesting that the other two pop-up things drop down during the skill shot. That seems like that's unnecessary mechanical movement. I think it would be interesting to see the Playboy table in this curation. I think there's a lot of electrical mechanical tables that are more historically relevant or should be more historically relevant, so they should be focused on more, but like Pinball Arcade basically said, they do have to make a business, so they could not get the justification to license the electromechanical table designs, or for the small interest that there would be in that. There definitely are some things that should have had pinballs made out of it. I didn't see a Sonic table, for instance, or a Street Fighter table, and those things would make sense, or Mortal Kombat table. All of those would kind of make sense. There are some newer tables like the Wizard of Oz that would have been really nice if they had the license for those. Playing brand new tables digitally is as helpful as playing old tables, because there are effectively no arcades in existence, really, or very few arcades in existence that have pinball tables, and even if they do have pinball tables, they aren't going to be guaranteed to have new ones. Throughout the entirety of the 650 tables, though, not a single one seemed to be in any ways modern Japanese centric. Super Mario Brothers is 1983 Japanese design, certainly, but you would have expected, if pinball tables were ever sold in Japan, which I imagine they never were, there would have been a license for like Neon Genesis Evangelion, for instance, and you certainly could have been some other big name ones. Any of the Ghibli, Studio Ghibli games, not Ghibli, it's Ghibli is how it's pronounced, like Princess Monaco, Spirited Away. Like Spirited Away is a fairly late Studio Ghibli movie. It would have made a lot of sense for them to have a licensed pinball table around that. My Neighbor Totoro would make a lot of sense. They'd be all any of the Ghibli films are kid friendly for the most part, and so that would be a great license to grab. But yeah, nothing like that at all, which does kind of put pinball in general and its themes in a weird place, even when they have like Ninja Turtles nostalgia tables coming out in 2021, and Marvel Avengers nostalgia tables coming out. Those are weirdly 1990s nostalgia and late 80s nostalgia, and so it pretty much seems like pinball themes are built around the nostalgia of the developer 30 years plus later. Which that's probably no way to run a business, just on selling to the nostalgic people. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like a table like this has got to implement a completely different system. I think you have to have balls and runs and not just have the balls drain down the center or the outlanes. Mostly it's center shots that are the problem as far as where it's draining, but the out lanes aren't helping either. And I feel like the glove as a concept should probably be the thing you're throwing the ball into with the jump, with like a hole in the bottom of it where the ball would drain when you make a good shot, instead of it being the blocker. Of course, that's not in line with reality as far as how baseball works. That left out lane could just use a kickback. And I'm not seeing any voice acting from the baseball guy, so selling his likeness doesn't seem to really have been that much of an ego trip compared to like Terminator 2. And see, here we're doing a night game. What would have totally made sense at this point, and we saw this with Attack from Mars, is if all the lights on the table went dim, except for what you're actually shooting for. That would make a lot of sense as far as a night game. So there's basically nothing you can do on this table. You're just shooting up the center. I guess it's probably nice that there isn't a way to beam somebody and hit them with the ball and walk them. But yeah, you're just shooting up the center for a left and right and center ramp, and then there's a sinkhole and there's 3 standing targets. And that's all this table has to offer. The far left ramp, let's see if we can shoot that and not drain.
Same player shoots again.
Yeah, hitting that roundabout seems to have done nothing.
Shoot for center field.
Sitting that seems to do nothing. Yeah, 30 minutes into this table, I'm done with it. Like, I have really no interest in going through this. And see, I've said on so many tables it would be nice if there was a jump in the center of the table that led to an area behind that point where where the ball would be safe to not roll back down the center lane. But this does show an example of where that could actually not work, where that might be worse off, because the ramp is so steep and the ramp is so far to the back in this design, that the ramp is not saving you. There might be a need to emphasize practicing on a table like this, and have practice games, have charity games, have rain delayed games. I don't know why you wouldn't always choose multi-ball. And there's your multi-ball again, done. Feels like it's just a 2-ball multi-ball, and the audio doesn't make it sound interesting. Like, inherently, baseball is fairly boring, and even Americans in the United States have woken up to the idea that it's fairly boring. It's way too long. The rules are too formulaic. it needs a whole spicing up
Player shoots again.
quite a bit. Inherently, I would also say most stadiums also are way too expensive for what they provide, as far as a service to the community, and people in 2021 don't have the free time or desire to sit in an unair conditioned baseball arena for 6 or 7 hours, and they really don't have the money to build a $billion stadium so that people can watch a game once
Player shoots
or
again.
twice a week. All that money could definitely go to a better cause. Take your pick, or what you think is a better cause.
Left gap. Shoot the drop cover. Shoot for center field.
I will say football still is very popular in America, so the same arguments could be made against a American football stadium, but that will get less traction. But yeah, people are losing interest in baseball. So, but even in 1994, baseball was boring, and you can even see in the design of this table that they really don't have a way of spicing it up that much. If anything, I would say this baseball table is even more of a frustration than the old 1950s, 1960s baseball table, which I'd like to be able to play in comparison for Pinball Arcade, but they didn't emulate that, and that would have been really easy to emulate, frankly. But at least in the 1940s, 50s version, whenever it actually was made, I don't know, that's just a straightforward game. Something you'd put like a penny in and take your 3 swings, and that would be it. Whereas this tries to complicate the process, but really can't complicate the process into anything interesting, because it still has to be baseball. Like, how can you make baseball not baseball is the question, and the answer is you really can't. If you got like Michael Jordan as a licensor, which maybe that was their first goal, then Michael Jordan is more known for playing basketball by far, but for a brief time he decided to play baseball, and then he made the Space Jam movie, which they're insanely making a sequel to in 2021. And at the end of the Space Jam movie, he went back to basketball. And there is some rumored speculation that he was caught gambling on his own basketball games, or gambling in general on basketball. And so, even though he was incredibly popular, the NBA told him to take a suspension, a self-imposed suspension, and take a break. But yeah, if you did have Michael Jordan and you ignore the controversy, which isn't even that big of a controversy, not in my book anyways, then you could have had a dual theme table of basketball and baseball. I weirdly think in 1995 too, each game should have the opportunity to play the national anthem, or should randomly in the track music play the national anthem. That there should be like an American flag. Like, all that patriotism is very prevalent in baseball, and so it feels odd for it to not really be there in this. And then like nachos and popcorn and Cracker Jacks and pretzels could all have been collectibles. Arguably, it's more interesting to have a table themed around the experience of watching a baseball game than it is playing a baseball game. Baseball is, once again, compared to soccer, not a good game to adapt to, or to try and get into, because you have to have a field with painted lines. You have to have a bat. You have to have an outfit, pretty much. You could go without the outfit. You have to have gloves for every player. You have to have a ball, several balls. When no other mode are active, shoot the left gap to change the inning by 1 up to the 9th inning. So shoot the left ramp 7 times. 7th inning stretch is a full ball multi-ball. During this mode, shoot each shot into the scoop or the right orbit to add a letter to Big Hurt. Completing Big Hurt scores the double jackpot and resets letters. And then Grand Slam Derby. To start Grand Slam Derby, complete Grand Slam by collecting bullpen awards or Players' Choices awards. Grand Slam letters can also be completed by hitting left scoreboard or the right scoreboard. Grand Slam Derby is a 4-ball multi-ball. When the Grand Slam Derby is started, the center ramp is raised and the home run lane is lit for the duration of the mode. And see, the center ramp being raised kind of makes it feel like the ball should be able to go over the glove, but it doesn't feel like it actually does do that. Shoot the home run lane to score a Grand Slam worth 43 million and 4 runs. So, okay. Must have just never spelled Grand Slam. I don't feel like Grand Slam is being added. The voice is telling you exactly what to do, but there's not a lot of things it can tell you to do. This is just not a blinky enough table. Needs more art. I kind of would like to see a table, if you're going to be themed around a team of baseball players. You could probably have a table with the, I would assume it's about 13 players per team. So I could see you trying to collect 13 different players, and maybe you'd give the players funny names. In 2021, you would probably have it be a bunch of kids playing together, co-ed baseball. Like, baseball is one of the sports that's probably most egalitarian of the possible sports that you could have co-ed gameplay on, because females, generally speaking, can be a little bit faster and more on the angles. And honestly, if they just made the male baseball players throw a softball or underhanded, you pretty much balance the whole game out very well. Baseball, as it stands, like all sports being so male dominated, changed its rules and evolved its rules to specifically be a power fest of how fast can you throw the ball, how hard can you hit the ball. Whereas if there were limitations or penalties for throwing the ball too fast or too hard and just throwing your shoulder out in the effort, you could balance the game out for a much larger group of people who could show other abilities and skills. There's in Japanese archery, there's that mentality where you will lose points in Japanese archery if you try to hit the bullseye. That's not what it's about. You're supposed to have good form of pulling back the bow and aiming the arrow and firing. And so if you're not using good form, if you're not using measured breathing and small, orchestrated movements, then you're not doing it the way they want you to to do it in Japanese archery. So if the same thing was here, if you just changed baseball's rules a little bit, that you were going to have a speed of miles per hour on the balls every time it's thrown. We already have that, so that's not adding anything. But then every mile per hour over or under 90 affects a score. So it's not just did you hit the ball, it's did he pitch the ball too fast or too slow. So what do you do to fix that? Because if somebody threw a 100 mile per hour and it was supposed to be 90, then that would be 10 points. But if somebody hit that 100, would they get 10 points? I guess that would be the case. But then if they threw a particularly slow ball and they hit it and it was 80 when it was supposed to be 90, and they hit the ball, should they get 10 points at that point too? Maybe, but there still would be kind of an emphasis to have a pitcher throw the ball as hard as possible to try and strike people out. You probably would want to increase the penalty for throwing balls. In general, in baseball, increasing the penalty for throwing balls would be good because that's what slows down the game significantly. A lot of major sports are slowed down because of commercial breaks and being on TV. So that's an issue to also address. You probably would want to change where you could run, so you could run left or right on the bases. That would make baseball way more interesting. And baseball is just like an American creation for the most part. I mean, it came from like a stickball game, I'm sure, from the UK, if I recall correctly. But yeah, if you could load the bases by running left or right, that would work fine and create confusion, certainly, instead of everything being counterclockwise. And you still would have to have a rule that every runner would have to hit each of the three bases, but it would be very interesting to see two people running towards each other to hit the second base and then running around to switch places. There's something that the outfielders need to be able to do that's more interesting than sit around and basically do nothing, because they are very much just like the second-rate citizens to the team. So instead of having them just catch the ball, they probably need a second round of bases. If there was a outfield base somewhere in the middle between 1 and 2 that you could choose to run to, then that brings them into the game more and changes the diamond into more of a pentagon. And same can be true for 3 and 4, and those can be optional halfway points. I don't know if there's anything else you can really add to baseball without changing what baseball is a lot. Because if you add a new ball, if you add new equipment, you just make baseball even less accessible.
Center field. Line to the right. Shoot the cross car. Another mammoth home run. Yes.
And even those suggestions, I don't think really fix a lot of the problems with baseball. It's just too slow. You got to get it down to like 4 innings instead of 9.
This guy's on fire. What a play.
More games in one day. You might want to change the curve on the foul lines too. If the foul lines curved a little bit in a circular fashion instead of being straight, so that there was less foul balls the further away it gets from the field, that would probably speed up the game a little bit too. Or you could simplify it by just simply eliminating the foul lines completely after the dirt mound ends, because like foul does not really mean anything if you've got it halfway towards a home run and it just slightly crosses a line. Ideally, you'd want to get rid of the idea of fouling a ball completely, but I don't know how you do that. When you have the rule that you have to have the ball in your glove to tag someone out. Maybe you just don't have that. Maybe everything is just an in the park home run, and you get rid of the foul lines. Even if you foul tip it, then the ball goes behind you, and that's considered a home run, unless somebody throws the ball back into play, which that's always an issue. Nobody wants to do that, so that it should just be an in the park home run, and then the game itself would get higher scores, and higher scores would be more interesting. Maybe there should be a Babe Ruth of foul tipping the ball into the field, although maybe that's slightly dangerous. What they tend to do and need to have is a net around pretty much the entire field, so that the balls can't hit the go into the crowd and hit somebody in the head and kill them, which has happened. People have gotten hit by a stray baseball and then been concussed and died. It doesn't happen a lot, but yeah. There's a lot of weirdness that I don't even particularly understand about baseball. I'm certainly no expert, but it seems like you can have relief pitchers and then relief runners, and relief like batters, so that there seems to be scenarios where somebody could potentially only do half of the job of what other people are doing. And if that's the case, then a relief runner might make a good sense, that you could have half a team made up of females who are faster, who are running from base to base, but they're not the ones having to do the hand-eye coordination of swinging the bat. Baseball as a team game really is weird, because it wants people who are experts at 2 or 3 things that are very different as far as possible options, possible skills. Whereas American football, has a kicker who's a designated kicker, and a quarterback who's a designated quarterback and typically focuses on being able to throw and pass the ball, and runners who are designated runners, where everybody's kind of everything in baseball, except for maybe the pitcher gets to just be a pitcher. Grand Slam mode, I think, is what I'm in, but I could actually be in a home run derby because I wasn't paying attention. Doesn't matter, I'm not in it now. This table highlights an issue, certainly, in that you don't have enough time or power to shoot a ball up the center lane when you're doing multi-ball. So it's particularly difficult to ask for you to play a multi-ball and then shoot up the center lane. I've gotten like 21 runs on this game, and it's just ridiculous. And unlike the soccer game, you're not playing against different teams. You're not playing different games. You're getting 21 runs in a single game, which is just insane. Alright, well, I don't think I need to go particularly long on this table. It's just the angles are bad on it, and I'm saying that more and more for tables, but it really is the case. Apparently I never did start a Grand Slam derby. Let's see if we could possibly have changed some things. Let's see. Replays. Highest games. I don't know why anybody would bother to change the high scores. Price. Coin meter. Coin door type. Game buy and bonus off. Extended play off. Extended play maximum 3, but it's already off. Extended play shoots 1 and 2. Game percent payout 24%. Match percent payout 1. High game replays 2. Maximum credits 20. Tilt warnings 2. Balls per game. Yeah. I imagine if you are a greedy arcade owner, some of these pinball tables would feel insane that they gave out as many free games as they did. But as a player, it's kind of just part of the culture that you get free games. In the same way that if you were playing blackjack in Las Vegas, it's kind of part of the culture that you get comped free drinks or other trips to the buffet, things like that. But yeah, I'm not seeing anything special here, and I wasn't really expecting anything special here. If you're going to make a modern version of this, you almost feel like there should be a trading card under the baseboard that you could see that lights up, or a trading card that prints out and is given to you after a high scoring game. But yeah, that'd be fairly expensive to run out of ink, or just even to have like a thermal printer that prints receipts would be kind of crazy as a gimmick. And they don't want to get back to the idea of gambling. Minimum game time 2 minutes. Yeah, not really saying anything there. Okay. So, if we're going to try and cheat here, the first thing you'd want to do is hit the skill shot, which I missed. And the ball control is just terrible. Once again. And hitting that shoots a single. Hitting the drop down targets does a single. Going this way and that way doesn't seem like it really does anything. If we hit this, that starts night game. And at this point I just have to use the flippers. Like, because you're just not going to be able to pull anything off. Otherwise, I can... They seem to want me to hit the left gap and the right gap. Interesting. Can I actually hit the right gap or the left gap? I don't think so. Yeah, it's kind of nothing here you can hit. Yeah, if I go up here and hit that, it seems to really just give you a small amount of points and that's it. I can't go up that. I definitely can't get up those ramps. Wow, notice how the ball just got popped up there. So if I just got 3 singles, then I should be scoring runs, but it don't seem like I am. It might be an idea that you do not trade the trading cards until you're at the maximum jackpot. That golden glove mode immediately drains out. And the toppling over lights up there. A, I can't see them, but B, they don't seem to actually do anything. Shoot the center field. I kind of hate the glove. I feel like the glove probably shouldn't exist except for in golden glove mode. And instead have that gimmick just in one location and that's it. Of course, there is another way that you could have had it go, is that it could have moved from left to right to center, and then from well, left, center, right, then center, and then left again. That way, half the time it would be blocking the center shot, but it just would not move unless you hit the flipper or unless you hit a slingshot. So it would be kind of random instead of it just constantly swinging back and forth, because with it swinging back and forth, you have the possibility that it will be halfway in between and block 2 shots. Another thing this table certainly could have had is it could have had a baseball themed plunger with one of those mini bats. That would have been a cool concept. Can I shoot the scoop in 15 seconds? Cheating. With ball control? No, I can't. You seem to get cards by rolling over the in lane and the out lane, which is kind of the worst place that you would want to collect cards. Particularly since we kind of know that the cards aren't very useful.
Center field. Thomas makes the catch.
Even if this was a different theme, let's say this was bowling instead. Bowling might be a more interesting idea because then you could just have pins that get knocked down as drop-down targets. And it's interesting that there hasn't been a theme around that. The simplistic shots, the lack of variety in the shots really ruins this table. The angles and the sharp draining down the center really ruins the angles. If I was going to make a bowling theme table, I would probably scale it in such a way that the entire table is the bowling alley and the entire top lane is the 10 pins set up. That way, if you hit some ramp on the far right, you're hitting a 7, and then if you're hitting a ramp on the far left, or vice versa, I imagine actually, you would hit a 10. So then 7-10 split would be to hit the far right ramp and then the far left ramp, or vice versa, in a 2-ramp combo. And then you can have more central shots that are curves, and then one very center shot that would be a strike. And you definitely could have an easy pinball goal to score 300 points. Score a perfect game.
This guy's on fire. Let's go. Oh, that got out of here in a heartbeat.
I don't get why it's taking so long to spell Grand Slam, though. We'll get to the 7th inning stretch. I guess these are just too hard of a shots, right? Frankly. There almost needs to be like a launcher, like Black Rose, which I guess that would work too, is if there was a baseball style launcher that launched the ball up the center and several sinkholes that would feed to that launcher. That might work as a concept too. Multi-ball begun and ended incredibly quickly. I think I earned an extra ball and it didn't even bother to make the loud clacking sound that every other pinball table is known for doing. The problem with the idea of this being baseball is you kind of would almost want to hold the ball and line it up like that and wait for the baseball glove to be out of the way. But I don't think you can really wait that long because it would just be too slow. I mean, you could certainly play any pinball table that way and just lock every shot, wait, and line it up, but you won't have any fun doing that for sure. There's no hand signals happening as far as a theme because you're not including the pitcher as a concept. So yeah, no secret hand signals and calling of fastballs, curveballs, whatever other kind of balls that exist. Can you get a grand slam in the home run derby or not? Maybe not. 381 million, that does not feel earned, and I think that's enough of this table. I barely got to the bottom high score here. And as far as standard goals, I didn't get 2 of the standard goals. Let's see what the leaderboards have to say. The overall, all time, we've got somebody with 100 billion, then it quickly jumps down to like 30 billion, which seems very believable. And then by the time you're at 50, you're down to 5 billion. I seriously doubt that many people have played it. My score puts me in 7,874th place, which really goes to show a really, really small number of people played this table. Weekly, I'm in the 41st place by Tuesday, which that's weird that so many people on a Tuesday have already played this table. Like, I'm really shocked, frankly, that 200 people would have played this table. And then monthly, I'm at rank 130 playing this on the 13th day, so I'm still fairly good. Even when I'm doing bad, I'm still shockingly better than a lot of people who are playing pinball, but that definitely is not a fan favorite. Yeah, I feel like some of these billiard games are fairly similar in feel to a baseball themed game, and I'd much rather play a billiard game. And if I was gonna really nitpick, let's just get back to Black Rose and look at this table and see the difference. So you've got this cannon in the center of the table. That could have been a baseball bat. Whenever you hit the Davy Jones locker ramp somewhere around here, it loads the cannon. The target is always right up the center, where that could have been the home run. And for a ramp on the left, there could have been a ramp on the left, and a ramp on the right. You could definitely have had smaller pop-up bumpers, so you can have 3 in a proper triangular configuration. You could have had more traditional ramps where you just shoot the ball and hit things. You could have had more standing targets than the 3 drop-down targets that existed. You could have fixed a lot of the out lanes and in lane and center lane drains. You could have a kickback. Yeah, I wouldn't say that you need a big whirlpool, but you could call that the wave. You could have had the crowd doing a wave, or you could have had a loop going around the backboard of the table, and that could have been the crowd doing the wave too. Or you could have even gotten a little crazy and had the ball go under the table, under the flippers, and that be the wave, which that's something that the audience does. I wouldn't say have a return lane like this where the ball returns back by cannon, but at the very least, if the glove were kind of magnetized and it caught it and it could somehow shoot the ball back, shooting it down this way and then having this metal angle so it doesn't hit it would have been much better. And pretty much I'm going to hold any table to this standard, that if you are going to have a table that wants you to shoot the ball the full length of a table, you need to have some assistance either in cannon or confirmation that the ball won't just be released and drained back as much as possible. See, that's a Bailey table, and the Bailey tables haven't been particularly great. And I would
An unbelievable smash!
say kind of the same for the Gottlieb tables. So I guess the question is, let's reevaluate which tables are worse, Gottlieb or Bailey. I absolutely hated that table, and didn't like that table, didn't like that table, didn't like that table, didn't like that table. There are some good ones though, like obviously a couple good Gottlieb tables. But I think when you look at Bailey, they've got a little bit more as far as good licenses, and I think the good licenses are going to win it out. And frankly, because they have Twilight Zone and Theater of Magic and Judge Dredd, that's going to win Bailey in the category as far as best table designer. Although you're in this weird position where the best table in a group is going to pull my opinion very highly. So theoretically, I would say Williams is probably the best table designer just because they made Star Trek The Next Generation. Then Bailey because they made Twilight Zone. Then it's potentially Stern because of maybe Ripley's Believe It or Not. We haven't played that game yet. And then it's Gottlieb. And then it's FarSight Studios. That would be my ordering of the manufacturers, if that matters to anybody. A lot of this, though, also boils down to curation per manufacturer, because it's very possible some Stern tables could have been emulated and they just didn't get the license to those Stern tables, and that they would have bed better. We've been kind of in this rut where we're doing sports and extreme sports themed tables, so I'd kind of like to be away from that, but it seems like we still got Indianapolis 500 next, then Jackpot. And it's not all been sports, of course. Rescue 911 and Fred and Ted's and Attack from Mars aren't sports related. But yeah, after we get past Indy 500, No Fear might be a skating themed table. And No Good Gophers is theoretically a golfing table. Champion Pub and Cactus might be sports, but then you're kind of done as far as anything that would be even close to a real world sports theme. Anyways, that's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend to follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wish list. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.